It's returning to Westminster now as Labour plan to get Britain moving, fix Britain's broken railways and put the passenger first by renationalisation.
Well, let's speak to James Murray, Shadow Financial Secretary to the Treasury, with more on this. Good morning, James. Now, given the financial challenges that we're currently facing, where would this extra money come from?
Yeah, well, thanks for asking that question, because it's a really important feature of our plan in terms of how it would work, that it would be at no cost to the taxpayer of bringing these contracts in-house, bringing them under the operation of Great British Railways, which would be a new publicly owned body that we would set up. And the reason why that's the case is because we would wait for contracts to expire over the course of the next Parliament, and as they expire, then fold them into Great British Railways. So there would be no buyout costs or compensation costs to pay to the private train operating companies. They would be folded in to Great British Railways over time, over the course of the next Parliament, to make sure that they were, by the end of the next Parliament, all operated in a unified, accountable body that we would set up.
James, all very admirable, and I get that, and I'm sure there's political capital for Starmer to talk about this, because you only got to look at Thames Water and huge bills and sewage and people taking £4 million bonuses. I completely get it. It is about the customer. We were told earlier that parts of our rail system, although privatised, are still involved with government. How can you guarantee to people listening to this that privatised railways that we have now are going to be, well, what you're going to do is going to make them better and isn't going to cost the taxpayer more money? Because that, I think, essentially, I think people are more switched on nowadays. I think the other day in the budget, they didn't listen about Tory tax because they were saying we're going to have to pay for it. How can you convince the British people they won't have to pay more for this?
Yeah, so look, what you said about passengers is absolutely crucial, because this is about putting passengers first. Because I think if you look back at the old British Rail, that was arguably a system which put engineers first rather than passengers. And if you look at privatisation of recent years, it hasn't succeeded on its own aims of, things like increasing competition and efficiency and reducing public subsidy. So we need to learn from the lessons of previous public and private operation of railways and make sure that the way that we would do it under Great British Railways would be the right way to do it in the future, learning those lessons. Now, in terms of the cost of it, I've set out how the contracts would be folded into Great British Railways at no cost to the taxpayer, because you just wait for the contracts to expire. And actually, once you've got the system sort of unified under Great British Railways, you can then bear down on up to what we believe is £2.2 billion of waste, which arises from inefficiency and fragmentation.
I know we haven't got much time. There's two very quick things I want to ask you. The first is, that's all well and good, but a lot of people who may be floating voters, red or whatever, would assume that nationalisation will lead to strikes and the unions holding a Labour government to task and saying, we want that. Very quick answer about how you say that won't happen, please.
Well, look at the last 2 years under the Conservatives. We've had ongoing strikes which they've completely failed to get on top of, whereas a Labour government would have tough but constructive conversations with the employers and the employees and union representatives to make sure that we get Britain's railways working again.
James, I have to ask you, in light of the comments made at Deputy Prime Minister's questions yesterday, your Deputy Leader referring to Rishi Sunak as a pint-sized loser. Do you think that's appropriate?
Well, look, Prime Minister's question time is a very lively time of the week. I think politicians have thick skins. I think Angela Rayner takes a lot of flack, but she gives back robust responses in Parliament. As I say, PMQs is a lively time of the week, and that's what Angela was doing.
I just hope the British public, when it comes to the election, James, don't have a bad view of politicians, because it sounds like playground stuff, but we appreciate your opinion. James Murray.
She's learnt by every single politician that's gone before her, so...
Yeah, you can argue that, yeah. James Murray, Shadow Financial Secretary of the Treasury, talking about Labour's idea to renationalise the railways. Thank you very much indeed.